Hello, I'm Mr. Brown, an instructor down in A-Flight. This is the third part of my series on how to review an instrument approach plate. And in this video, I'm going to discuss another popular method called the Z method. Don't get too hung up on whether it's a Z or a C, a Zulu or Charlie. The whole idea is basically the same depending on how my approach plate is laid out. Again, this is just a technique. One pro that I like about this is that it follows a rather logical and a chronological order. I find myself that it's a little bit quicker to do, and maybe that's simply because I've done this method more than I've done an end mailman. One of the cons about it is that it's easy to miss some important information, such as your min safe, min sector altitudes, your emergency safe altitude, your loss comm. So those are things that you would have to consciously add on to your review. So to show you how a Z method would work, let's again use the ILS or localizer 1.5 right at Randolph to do our review. So I'm out in the MOA, I'm doing my A Doctor Who, I get to the R. All right, crew, I'm going to review the ILS or localizer to runway 1.5 right. As you can see here, this is basically how I'm going to brief. Start in the top left corner, brief across and down and get all of those items. I'm going to drop down through the plan view, down into the profile, get all of my approach minimums at the bottom, and then end this talking about my airfield diagram. So it would sound something like this. Localizer is channel 6, 111.3. Final approach course is 145. Runway is 8,352 feet long. Touchdown zone elevation is 761, which is the same as airport elevation. My published missed approach is climbing to 3,000 feet out the Randolph VORTAC, 159 radial to 13 DME, give key, and expect ATC instructions. This part for the local area, you might not need to brief. You might want to brief it though if it is at a cross-country field, someplace that you don't frequent very much. San Antonio approach then is going to be on channel 5. Note that I'm not briefing the manual settings because I'm in the local area. I'm going to convert those to my local preset. Now, if I'm out of the local area, then I would have briefed it as San Antonio approach is on 318.1 or 128.05 Victor. ATIS for hangover is channel 18, hangover tower is channel 2, and ground is on channel 1. All right, we need to maintain 4,000 feet until we get to Musby, which is the 159 at 14 DME. Might also want to discuss the lead point that I'm going to be using when I get to Musby to intercept the 14 DME arc, arcing to the west, staying at 4,000 feet. I've calculated a lead radial as the 329 radial, at which point I will start a left-hand turn and select channel 6. Prior to Musby, I want to get channel 1 DME held and get my 145 final approach course put in the course select window. Then once I start the turn, I'll get over to the localizer, which is on channel 6. Stay at 4,000 feet until 12 DME, then I can step down to 3,100 feet until the glide slope intercept, final approach fix at 8.1. I want to get configured about 3 miles prior, so that is about 11 DME. I'm going to slow and get configured. When I get to glide slope intercept, I'm going to use line on line, 21%, a 600 foot per minute descent rate, down to a decision altitude of 961. I need an RVR of 4,000, height above is 200, and the weather mins for this approach are 203/4. This brings me straight down the runway. There is some obstacles out there. 843, 780 I want to watch out for. We do have barriers. They're in the overruns, and I've looked that up in the IFR SUP. Those are web barriers, and they're normally in the down position, so we should be good with that. We have PAPIs, which will be off on the left-hand side of the runway, and I already mentioned my runway is 8,352 feet long by 100 foot wide. We have high-intensity runway lighting on all runways. There is no approach lighting system, and most of the airfield should be off to my left when I break out. Now, if I'm doing the localizer, I might want to also add down there, final approach fix to the missed approach point is 6.6 miles, nautical miles. Going back to my profile view, that does add up, and it's confirmed missed approach point is woo top at 1.5 DME. I can back that up with timing. I expect a 10 knot tailwind possibly. So with the 120 ground speed, my time to the missed approach point would be 3 minutes and 18 seconds. Now I'll have to calculate one for 110 knots if I think with the winds, my ground speed is going to be at 110, which is what I'm normally flying it at. So there you go. That is the Z method. Now, sometimes the airfield diagram will be over on, in this case, maybe the left-hand side. So it actually makes the letter C, but it's still the same philosophy, the same basic review. You'll notice, though, a couple things I did not talk about. I didn't talk about my min safe or my emergency safe altitude. So I might want to go back and make sure that I have looked at those, reviewed what those altitudes are. Maybe there were some notes up in the top left-hand corner that are appropriate for me that I didn't talk about. Now, I easily could have gotten that on the top part of my letter Z, circling not authorized northeast of the runway. Of course, if there's any treble T's or inverse A's up there, I would want to address that, take a look and find out if there's anything there that is going to affect me. Another thing I didn't talk about is lost comm. So Z method is pretty good. You might, though, want to add a few things to there to make sure that you have covered everything that you're going to need. Hopefully what you saw from that is when I get down into the plan view and the profile view, it becomes more of a chronological chair flying kind of a run through, because after all, that's what I'm doing. That kind of helps my task management, helps my situational awareness, briefing it and thinking of these things in that order. So there you go. There's the Z method. That's pretty much the two most common ones, and mailman and Z method. Those are not the only methods. As I mentioned in the first video, feel free to go out to the internet and take a look at other techniques, other ways to brief things. As long as you have a method for reviewing the approach that is timely, it covers everything that you need to refresh yourself on, and it leads you to being able to fly a successful, smooth, good SA, good task management, good aircraft control, cross-check kind of an approach, then that is probably a good method for reviewing the approach. Problem with this is you have a lot of options, so choose carefully. Whatever method you decide to do, you do need to practice that a lot. You need to make it part of your habit patterns and part of the way that you fly and do things. So practice that a lot, chair fly it a lot, so you can execute things in a timely manner. I hope this series of videos has been helpful for you, trying to figure out how to review an instrument approach. If you have any questions or any comments, if I misspoke on anything, please let me know. I am Mr. Brown down in A-Flight. Happy flying.